Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another episode of the Lies They Tell podcast. This is episode 10. Just a couple of things to go over here. And before we do that, you know how I start my each and every episode. For all of my returning viewers, welcome back. I hope you and yours are in good health. I hope you are protecting your mind, your peace, and your heart. For all of my first time viewers, please, please, please be sure to bang that subscribe button, the like, comment, and share. And of course, if you want to be kept updated on everything that I post, you can hit that bell notification button. Um, today's episode is actually pretty special to me, right? And it is something that I myself, being someone who has grown up in the Western culture, something that I have taken part in. It is something that I have celebrated. It is something that I have participated in. It is something I have looked forward to. I spend hours thinking about what I would do on this occasion, who I would do it with, where we would do it. And without further ado, this is episode 10 of the Lies They Tell podcast. And today's episode is about Valentine's Day, aka Lupercalia. Now, before we get into that, a couple of things to just remember and to reference, right? First and foremost, this is episode 10. That back there is not really an episode, but it is about just a little thank you a video that I wanted to share with you all. For all of you that have seen it, this is episode 10. I've hit my first 100 subscribers on YouTube, got my first 10,000 views on one of my Instagram reels. And I forgot to mention before, a couple of my videos actually broke through to 200 views finally. This is like all in the span of a week. And that's what that video is about. And so without a further ado, we'll go forward. And let me start off by saying power to the people. We're back to do maintenance. Yeah, we're going to rock like crack when it came in. Hello, glad you can make it. That's battle rap for all of you guys that may not know. I'm a huge battle rap fan, and let me get into here, right? So, just a couple of things. Now that we're talking about Valentine's Day, let's first visit what Valentine's Day is about or what it's supposed to signify, right? It is a day in which, in the Western society, we kind of put aside for expressing love, appreciation, to a special someone, right? This isn't about your mother. This isn't about your father. It's not about your children. It is about your significant other and showing that person just how much they mean to you. Um, One thing that always rang in my head, right, even as a young person, was why one specific day? And why that one day? Why, of all the days in the year, why did Valentine's Day have to be February 14th? Questions like that would always ring to me, but I wouldn't pay much attention to it because I've always considered myself someone with a overactive imagination. And I think that's a lot of times ways that we actually discourage ourselves from digging deeper into things that we know are important to us. We tell ourselves, you're thinking too much, you're thinking too deep, it's not that serious. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said that to yourself? Now, getting older, right, after having have celebrated Valentine's Day numerous of times, after had gone out, spent hundreds upon hundreds of dollars throughout the years on Valentine's Day gifts, maybe even thousands of dollars, Valentine's Day gifts and Valentine's Day dinner and picking the right outfit and making sure she's happy, the bouquet of flowers, which is probably the most expensive thing depending on how big you want to do it, right? Um, just a couple of things though. Why that day? Why February 14th? Why one day out of the shortest month of the year, right? Why why isn't it more often? Why is it that we are going to use just one day to tell someone they're special to us? And for that, we have to visit the origins of Valentine's Day. And when we say the origins, right, there are two places where Valentine's Day was thought to have originated from, right? And if you are Muslim or Christian, right, if you have any belief system, if you believe in a monotheistic religion, this is very, very, very important for you, right? There's two places where Valentine's Day was said to have originated from. I will tell you the first one, the more commonly known one, right? And then I'll tell you the one that's not so common. Now let's get straight into it. So on February 14th, during the 13th century, or the third, I'm sorry, the century AD, there was a man known as Valentine. This man was a writer. He was a tutor to an emperor at the time whose name was called Claudius II. Now, Claudius II daughter was being tutored by this man named Valentine. Valentine, in the time of trying to, you know, pretty much tutor this emperor's daughter, also started to kind of preach to the emperor, and he tried to get the emperor to convert over to his religion. The emperor became enraged, right? And he basically had the emperor had the man Valentine beheaded for his faith and his beliefs. And the reason why the Valentine thing came about was that whenever this man would write during his time of imprisonment, whenever he would write letters to the emperor's daughter, he would always sign the letter from your Valentine. And that's where, those little heart-shaped candies, cards, be my Valentine, I am your Valentine, I'd like to be your Valentine. That's where all of that, was thought to have originated from. This is the more commonly story known about Valentine's Day. Now, let me tell you my problem before we move on to the more uncommonly known ones, right? Let me tell you my problem with this story. First and foremost, there is no real evidence that this actually happened. Not only that, there is evidence that actually points to the fact that this emperor Claudius II has actually executed multiple men by the name of Valentine. Although this man, I guess from this story, was to have said to have happened somewhere around the 3rd century on February 14th, he is not the only Valentine that was executed by Claudius II. There was another Valentine who would secretly marry young couples, right? He was a Christian. He would secretly marry young couples because at the time they weren't allowed to do so. And so he was executed for that too. Now that's just like my only real problem with this is the lack of like real evidences behind these stories. They're really just stories. You know what I mean? And once again, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm not here to tell you what you should or should not believe. I'm here to give you the facts, right? So those are the two stories of Valentine's that are the most commonly known. Now let's move on to the most uncommonly known story of the origin of Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day, actually, and this is of my belief. Once again, this is of my belief. It does not have to be your belief, but I do have a responsibility to give this to you. And you do have a responsibility to do your own research. Like I said, it's especially if you are Muslim, especially if you believe in any monotheistic religion. And this is why the story of Valentine's Day or originated from a pagan holiday or pagan festival called Lupercalia. Lupercalia started when a king at the time who was the uncle to two young nephews. So what the king does is he orders these two young nephews of his to be drowned, right? And so as the orders of the king was being carried out, one of the servants of the king was actually felt so bad about what he was told to do. Basically, his conscience would not allow him to drown these two children. He instead put these two children in a basket in the river. A lot like the story of Musa alayhi salam, at least with the basket and the river portion of it. And the river ended up carrying this basket along for some time, and it ended up getting caught up in the branches of an olive tree, right? And as it get caught up in the branch of the olive tree, the two young children were actually found by a she wolf. The she wolf ended up nurturing these two children in a cave. And after some time, the children were then found by a shepherd and his wife, who then adopted them and raised them as their own. After these two young men became of age, they ended up going back to kill their uncle who has convicted them to death by drowning. After they had killed their uncle, the very first thing they had done is they had gone back to the cave in which the she wolf had actually nurtured them and raised them, and they named the cave Lupercal. They named the she wolf Lupercal. I apologize. And the cave was called the Cave of Lupercal. And that's the origins, right? And that is the origins of Lupercalia. Now let's get into the ritual of Lupercalia. The ritual sacrifice of Lupercalia actually took place in the cave of Lupercalia, the Palatine Hill, and the Roman open air. This is an a ritual where a group of Roman priests, get this is where Christianity ties into this, right? And this is where the religious aspect of this actual religion that started off as a pagan holiday continues on to this day. These are how they're connected. The ritual sacrifice was that a group of Roman priests would get together. They would go into a cave. They would sacrifice two goats and one dog to symbolize sexuality, right? They're symbolizing sexuality by killing two goats and one dog in the name of Lupercal, the she wolf. And then when they're done slaughtering the three animals, they actually take the blade, which has the sacrificial blood of these animals, and they wipe it onto the forehead, the two foreheads of the Lupercal. I don't know if it's the actual she wolf or if they mean the actual monument dedicated to the she wolf, but from what I've read and what I've researched, they actually smeared it on the two foreheads of the she wolf. And the she wolf, the only time they would actually be able to get the blood stains off of the she wolf is that they would take milk. They would soak wool into milk and wipe this off. I can't make this stuff up. This is actually, and for reference purposes, I will post this up. This is from history.com. This is like, you can literally Google this at any time and find this information out. Now, that is the ritual sacrifice. That is what they sacrifice on Lupercal. Moving forward, now let's talk about the festivities of Lupercalia. What did they do? How did they celebrate? Another very important part to remember, right? The way they would celebrate Lupercalia is that they would actually take a group of men, they would take thongs, right, that they would carve out from the skin of these dead animals, right? They would carve the skin dead animals' carcasses, the ones that they did the sacrifice with, and they'd create like whip-like thongs, right? And then they would go into the town completely naked or nearly naked, and they would go and whip any woman in close proximity with these thongs. This is actually how they celebrated. That is one aspect of the celebration. What is another aspect? And this, once again, is where I really want you guys to pay attention, because this is how it really connects to Valentine's Day. For those of you who are wondering what is the connection, um, what they would do is all the men of that time or of that place would put their names into a. They would put all the women's names into a jar, and all these men would come together and they'd pull a name out of the jar. Whatever name that man pulled out, that man would spend from that moment until the next Lupercalia festival with that woman. What happened was is that as people started to do this, many of them, many of them end up falling in love. Many of them end up getting married. And this is where the entire love aspect of Valentine's Day, the idea of love and romance, actually comes from. When did this take place? The Lupercalia festivities started on February 15th. How does Lupercalia actually tie into Valentine's Day? Um, Sometime during the 5th century AD, the Pope at that time, Gallienus, I believe his name was, he actually decided to ban Lupercalia because it had pagan origins, right? Because it was a pagan holiday. And then Christianity was supposed to be a monotheistic religion at the time, right? And what he did was he banned it and said, well, instead of the 15th of February starting the celebrations of Lupercalia, we could actually celebrate Valentine's Day on the 14th. What are some direct correlations there? The red, the hearts, the roses, right? The color red. All these red that you see everywhere during the time of Valentine's Day, that also signifies the blood sacrifice that they've made in the cave that I was telling you guys about with the two goats and the dog, and how they used to take the blood sacrifice, the knife with the blood sacrifice on there, and they used to put it on the forehead of the of the statue or whatever it was that they were using to signify or to symbolize the brickell. Now, when you think about it, the color white is very, very important. It's very, very prevalent during the Valentine's Day season as well. And the white celebrates the milk that they would soak the wool in, that they would use to scrub off the blood off of Lupercal. Once again, You know, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not telling you what to do. I am literally giving you information that's already there that a lot of us may not have the time nor the energy to actually go and find on our own. There are Christian scholars, right? Not move away from Islamic, right? Our Muslim people is one thing, but like Christian scholars, some Christian scholars actually advise against celebrating Valentine's Day to Christian believers. Did you know that? This is a fact. Christian scholars actually advise against the celebration of Valentine's Day to Christians. So, where do we as Muslims stand? If Christians are saying, if Christian scholars are saying this holiday has pagan ancestors or pagan origins, where does that leave us as Muslims? You know, ignorance is one thing, and ignorance by choice is a completely different thing. It took me no more energy to find the sources of this information, right? As it would take you. You know, we live in a generation where we have the entire world at our fingertips. Everything is right there for us. Click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. All day long, we're clicking, we're thumbing, we're fingering something, right? We're going on to one screen to another. We're going from one app to another. And if you know, if what you do and what you believe in is remotely important to you, then I think that you owe yourself the due diligence to actually go out and get this information, to actually go out and educate yourself. See, it's not as simple as loving someone. The problem is that we're told we have to love someone on this day every year, every single year. We have to love them on this day, this way, by buying them flowers, specifically red roses, by specifically wearing red, by specifically wearing white. We're told we have to do this is how you celebrate it. See, it's not, it's one thing to love and to want to be loved, right? But you ask yourself, why does it have to be on that day? And I promise you, you want it on that day, not because it matters to you, but because other people are going to be celebrating it that day. Because that when you go on social media that day, you'll find nothing but women and men showing the gifts, showing the beauty, and showing all this stuff that they did for their Valentine's Day. And you want to be a part of that because you're a human being, and we have an innate inclination to wanting to be a part of the herd, to be wanting to be a part of the group. But at what it cost? What expense? Because what you are doing quite literally contradicts what you believe. So at least admit to yourself, and let us at least admit to ourselves that we celebrate Valentine's Day because of tradition, not because it actually matters to us and we feel loved. Because my definition of love is that you do something, my woman does something out of her own accord, because she wants to, because she woke up that day with me on her mind and actually went out and did something beautiful for me, as opposed to doing something because everyone else is doing it. I'm not going to lecture you guys. I'm going to leave it right there. All I'm going to say is we have a responsibility to educate ourselves, and that is all I am trying to do. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe. I'm not trying to tell you what to follow. I'm not trying to tell you who you should be. I can only tell you who I am. I am not perfect. I have celebrated Valentine's Day in the past, recent past. But I'm the type of person, when new information is brought to me, I first listen and then I decide if this is something of use or not. And I decide whether I care or not. This has been another episode of the Lies They Tell podcast. I promised myself this would be a very short episode. And once I edit it up, we'll see what happens. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless your friends. Be safe out there, yo. Life is short. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.